that's why Carolina's in Chapel Hill and USC's in California. And the university in this state always has been, always will be, Clemson. Print that, tweet that.
And I hope they come in here undefeated. That's what I told you before the game. Our team believes. Our team believes. They got heart. We got greatness in us. They say we can't do it. What they say now?
Down go the champs. Auburn's 17-game win streak comes to an end.
We got greatness in us. So I told them, you got greatness in you, but you got to make a decision to be great. They made a decision to be great today. And I couldn't think of a better place to end the streak than Death Valley, South Carolina, baby.
And now it's time for TigerNet Talk, presented by Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty.
They got the coaches back, and they have each
Welcome back in, Clemson fans, to another edition of TigerNet Talk. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Lawton Swan, and I do appreciate you stopping by and spending some time with us as we talk about your favorite team, my favorite team. That's right, the Clemson Tigers, right here each and every Sunday night at 9, Wednesday night at 9, just for you exclusively. You can tune into the program on ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Go to the live link at those times and join us in the chat room. And you can also see the program on the front page of TigerNet.com. It's not up yet, but I'm sure momentarily it will be. And the Clemson Tiger baseball team off to a quick start in this ball game against Western Carolina. Of course, it was delayed, so I guess a quick start is an oxymoron at this point, considering it was a delayed start to the ball game. But the Tigers are up 6-0 at the time with runners in scoring position. But don't forget, it wasn't that long ago the Clemson Tigers were up, I believe, 9-3 up in Cullowhee against Western Carolina, and the Catamounts came a-roaring back. Clemson did hold on to win that ball game, but maybe you could say that with this Clemson Tiger baseball team, no lead is safe. I know this team has done some growing up this season. They've improved greatly. But still, you've got to be very cautious. This is a team that can get a case of the cold bats in a hurry. They can get a little shaky in the field. And when you give teams multiple opportunities, maybe with 2 outs in an inning to put runs on the scoreboard, and they do, it is quite difficult to win ball games. Tweet to us throughout the week, hashtag TNTalk. That's a hashtag TNTalk, all one word, or email us, Clemson81@gmail.com. And give us a call anytime, 803-450-0086. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Phone lines are open if you'd like to give us a call and give us your thoughts on a lot of different things. The CFP, the College Football Playoff. I knew I should have bought. I knew years ago when I was sitting around in Tillman Place back in 1997, and I was putting together something I called the Kakalaki Conference. And it was all the schools from the SEC and the ACC combined. I kind of merged it. Had a very, very nice, it was very futuristic for its time. But at that point in my life, I should have invested in that URL. College Football Playoff. Instead, if you didn't know, ESPN actually already owned it. So conveniently, the name of this new playoff system, not affiliated with the BCS, will be the CFP. The College Football Playoff. We're also going to be talking here on tonight's program a little bit of the NFLD. That's right, the NFL Draft right here. And that GOR, the Grant of Rights that was given out by the Atlantic Coast Conference and all the universities involved with it. I don't think it's a death knell by any means. Some people will say it is to this league, to college football, to what you expected for Clemson going to the Big 12. For me, there's a whole lot to like, I think, about what this did for the Atlantic Coast Conference and college football in general. And we'll have B.J. Bennett of SouthernPigskin.com on the program with us in just a few minutes to get his thoughts on all of that. Plus, if you didn't have a chance to read B.J.'s article, Clemson's championship time is now, that he wrote for SouthernPigskin.com. B.J. Bennett is high on the Clemson Tigers this year. Extremely high on your Clemson Tigers. Feels really good about this team. Likes the way Dabo Swinney has led this program. A 10-win season back in 2011. I still want to say last year, but a 10-win season back in 2011. And an 11-win season in 2012. Could Dabo Swinney be in line for a 12-win season in 2013? Perhaps a 13-win season in 2014. Will this little trend that he's got going continue? I think Clemson fans could certainly hope for that. And you look at the schedule, the way things set up this season with a couple of Thursday games which give you that off weekend, a few open dates mixed into the schedule. Going to be a very good opportunity for Clemson to be very healthy as they move through the season. But first, I want to give you my thoughts on this grant of rights that the Atlantic Coast Conference and the teams in this league agreed on. And basically, to put it into perspective what a grant of rights is, if you don't know already, and many of you may, I'm sure you've probably read a good bit about it. But a grant of rights is basically the school forfeiting their right to, in some ways I would say, market yourself to a network. And unfortunately what basically happens is with a grant of rights, all schools in the Atlantic Coast Conference are locked in, and the ACC is basically the marketing tool, the marketing head. They're selling the rights. If you leave to go somewhere else, the ACC no longer has to sell the rights to your games to anybody, and the only way that you would ever be on TV, and I could be wrong on this, would be if the school that you were playing against was being marketed by somebody else and you just happen to fall into favor there. But the money, everything that's generated that comes in from that revenue stream wouldn't be there any longer. And there are going to be a lot of people who are going, to really feel like Clemson got a raw deal on this whole thing. There are a number of people out there, you can find them on the message boards, that feel like, oh my goodness, we had our opportunity perhaps to get away from this league and we just didn't do it. You have so many people. I read Mickey Plyler's blog on TigerNet. Got a ton of respect for Mickey and his work, but I don't think I could disagree more with what he said about lost hope. I mean, there were a lot of people that felt like Bob Uecker in a lot of ways.
Personally, I think we got hosed on that call.
And I just don't think we got hosed. I think when you look at the Atlantic Coast Conference right now, you got to realize the ebbs and flow of college sports. And when you look at the Atlantic Coast Conference right now, 2013, adding Syracuse and Pitt, that might not be the big thing that you hope to boost your conference. But in 2014, when Louisville and Notre Dame come into this league, let's look at what these teams did last year. Now understand that when they play each other in conference play, it's going to take a hit to their schedules, to their records. Florida State goes 12-2 last season. They lose to Florida and NC State. Clemson goes 11-2. They lose to Florida State and South Carolina. Notre Dame went 12-1, losing in the national championship game substantially to Alabama. And a lot of people knew that Notre Dame probably didn't deserve to get there. The good thing, based on their schedule and who they played, but the good thing is, in this new system where they'll be playing 5 teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference starting in 2014, the good news is, at that point, Notre Dame will go through what I think is a more rigorous schedule than what they've gone through recently. Louisville went 11-2 this past season. They lost to Syracuse and UConn, and they also beat Florida in their bowl game. And then, so those are 4 teams that had really good seasons, 11-plus win seasons this past year. You can't find 4 teams in the SEC with 11-plus win seasons last year. Miami, Virginia Tech, they were down. Miami 7-5, Virginia Tech 7-6, not the norm by any means for a Frank Beamer coach team. And I think potentially you've got North Carolina and Georgia Tech as teams who can occasionally rise into the equation and fall out of the equation. So if you take one of those two in North Carolina and Georgia Tech and throw them in the mix, you're talking about 7 of the 15 teams, including Notre Dame, which is sort of an outlier, being teams who have reasonable opportunities, I think, to make some noise. Reasonable opportunity to make some noise nationally. And there's a lot of different ways this thing can hash out as we go forward with this college football playoff. I was once a big proponent of 4 or 5 16-team leagues. I'm getting away from that a little bit and basically going into what I think might work even better. Might be 8 8-team leagues. And some people are going to say, well, we don't want to go smaller, but I've got a theory on how that could really work well. And I think it can make people excited about the future of college football. Clemson Swag in the chat room says Clemson wouldn't fit in the Big 12. Wouldn't fit in the Big 12. Clemson's the only team to put the ACC on the big picture. I'm assuming that's what you meant, that Clemson's the only team. It said time, but I'm assuming you meant team. I disagree. I think Notre Dame's going to bring a lot of punch to this conference. Florida State, you've got to feel like Jimbo Fisher's starting to revitalize that program some. I mean, let's be real. When you look at Florida State, you got to admit that Bobby Bowden probably stayed there just a little bit too long. Just a little bit too long. I mean, Jimbo Fisher in 4 years at Florida State, he's 31-10. Last season they go 12-2, 7-1 in conference play. They may have a dip this season. Obviously, Clint Trickett transferring, that's going to hurt them because I knew Clint Trickett would compete for that starting spot. I didn't know if he would get it based on the talent level. But he showed in a few seasons and a few opportunities when E.J. Manuel went down that he could quarterback that ball club. He never scared me. Manuel never scared me. But ultimately, Florida State has a very, very good schedule this season, I think. A very good schedule. It's going to be difficult for Clemson if Clemson doesn't handle business against Florida State. I don't think, looking at Florida State's schedule this season, that they have the loss on their schedule for Clemson to make up ground. It's not to say they don't have a loss on their schedule, but if Clemson were to lose to Florida State, I don't think that extra loss is there. I don't think you can find that loss for Clemson to make up ground. See, losing one doesn't help you. We found that out this year. We knew that going in. I don't think that extra loss is out there for Florida State based on what I've seen. But the Grant rights, a lot of people not happy, but I am. I think it solidifies the Atlantic Coast Conference for now. I know it's a 12, 13-year deal. It's going to be a long time before anything changes. I don't know how this will affect maybe if teams do come into the league. If the ACC were to ever go to 16, would there be an opportunity to renegotiate? Those kind of things have to be considered. This is more about protecting the teams from leaving. And you could hear the basketball schools, a collective roar that the Atlantic Coast Conference has been saved. And oddly enough, it's been the ACC who, when you go back and start thinking about the poaching of the conferences, has really done the most. I mean, the Atlantic Coast Conference went out. They got Virginia Tech. They got Boston College. They got Miami from the Big East. Then they got Pittsburgh. They got Syracuse. Now they're adding Notre Dame, Louisville. For all the fear of teams and conferences coming in and taking the Clemsons, the Florida States, the Virginia Techs, the Virginias, whoever, the Georgia Techs away from this league, the ACC has actually been the group that's been gobbling up teams left and right throughout the years. And I say throughout the years from about 2003, 2004 on. The past 10 years, really, the Atlantic Coast Conference is the Pac-Man. You youngsters may not remember the old, I'm sure you at least have seen it, right? The Atlantic Coast Conference is the Pac-Man of college football. They've gobbled up more teams and added them into the fold than any other league in the country. Solidified, yes. Greatness, you've got to prove it on the field against your SEC foes. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more with B.J. Bennett of SouthernPigskin.com right after this. Stay with us. Miss that old familiar ping of college baseball? Well, guess what? You don't have to miss a single game of Clemson Tiger baseball, as you can stay at the closest hotel to Doug Kingsmore Stadium, the Clemson University Conference Center and Inn. Rooms are available for baseball season with lakeside accommodations, complimentary continental breakfast, bar, Seasons Restaurant by the lake, Joe's Place Bar, and the Walker Golf Course. All are waiting for you right around the corner from the stadium. For reservations, contact General Manager Sharon Franks at Sharon Clemson.edu or call toll-free 1-888-654-9020 and ask to speak to Sharon. It's the Clemson University Conference Center and in. Go to www.clemsonuniversityn.com. G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove. A winning team requires having great team members. If you're a landowner interested in selling timber or are considering buying or selling land, call the winning team of Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty, LLC today. Put the knowledge and skills of professional licensed foresters and realtors to work for your team. To learn more about services offered by Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty, LLC, visit www.crosscreektimber.com and easily follow the link to real estate or reach them by phone 864-517-3620 or 864-517-3621. Clemson Sports Talk fans, let us help you. With rates starting as low as $100 a month, you can advertise with us through July 2013. We are currently seeking additional advertisers and would love to help you spread the word about your business. Email us clemson81@gmail.com for additional information. Sponsors will receive an ad during the show and a link and logo in the weekly show notes on TigerNet and on the front page of ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Take your business to the Clemson fans around the world with us, ClemsonSportsTalk.com.
The 1988 season was a great year for the Clemson Tigers, finishing 10-2 with a win over Oklahoma in the Citrus Bowl. But it was a better year for Clemson fans. That season, Tigertown Graphics became your source for custom tees, promotional items, and embroidery. Conveniently located in the heart of downtown Clemson, their retail store proudly displays Clemson shirts that are designed and printed directly on site. Whether you're looking for the latest Clemson t-shirts or ordering products for your school, organization, or business, Tigertown Graphics can help with all of your t-shirt needs. Find them online at www.tigertowngraphics.com. A Clemson tradition since 1988.
I thought I'd grow up and I'd settle down. There was 10,000 girls up in Tigertown, and it was heaven to me. I used to sneak downtown with my fake ID and watch Doug McCoy.
Welcome back in to TigerNet Talk. I'm your host, Lawton Swan. Thank you so much. We would hope to have BJ Bennett on the phone lines with us, and for whatever reason, every once in a while, I don't know, the phone lines are down right now. I'm hoping they'll be back up, and if they are, we'll definitely give BJ a call, but it still sounds like they're down, and I don't know why. I just sent him a text message to let him know that I would try and call him back momentarily. So we're going to continue on with the program just a little bit, and I'm going to tell him I'll call him back in just a few minutes. Hopefully that'll get working. I don't know. I hadn't had any problems with that in a while. I'm not sure at all what's going on and why the phone lines aren't working, but they typically are up and going. But tonight, for whatever reason, they are not. That's a little bit of a disappointment because I expected to have BJ on and wanted to talk to him and get his thoughts about this Clemson football team as well as a lot of other great stuff. And the NFL draft, of course, the eve of the NFL draft, if you're listening to the program live here Wednesday nights at 9 p.m., obviously some of you catching the show on Thursday, Friday, who knows, maybe even through the weekend. There's definitely something going on here. I am not sure. We are having some major issues internet-wise. So we're going to just keep rolling because I know the tape recorders are always rolling away and rolling along. But the NFL draft is going to be upon us sooner rather than later. And for some of you, it will be in the rear view. And there are a couple of Clemson Tigers out there who many people are hoping will get picked early, will have very good careers. I think the the main guy that many people are anxious to see how he does and how he develops as an NFL player is DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins, the young man out of Daniel High School who came into Clemson with, I would not say little fanfare. I think he had a fair amount of fanfare, but definitely not nationally. And as a freshman on a poor Clemson Tiger team, came in and was an impactful player for Clemson in year number one, a very disappointing season for him and for this Clemson Tiger team. Then in year two, he was clearly overshadowed by the young freshman Sammy Watkins. But in year number three, when the limelight and the spotlight were on DeAndre Hopkins, he definitely made the plays he needed to make. He definitely became the impactful wide receiver that many people thought he would be. And I think he showed at times, that he has as much ability and talent at catching the football and route running as Sammy Watkins. Definitely doesn't have the same elite breakaway speed. He attacks the ball high. If you haven't seen, my goodness, ESPN and their sports science department did a great piece, an unbelievable piece on Nuke Hopkins the other day, showing him making catches. I can't remember exactly how many it was in a row. I want to say 51 he caught in a row, one-handed grabs. Just the ball sticking right into his big mitts. 48, Craig said. 48 in a row. I started to think, how many could I have done? Honestly, I got pretty large hands. I could palm a basketball fairly easily. Now, they did the little diagnostics on his, and, it's like 9.5 inches or some ridiculous wrap your hands around the football twice like Elastic Man. But he's just snatching those things. I think I could go 5. Craig says 8. Clemson Swag says 5. Now, my nephew and I had a discussion about it, and there were a few times you noticed, I think around 31 or so, Hopkins sort of bobbled it a little bit and then kind of readjusted and made the grab. And that counts. That's a catch. That's much more of a catch than Jadeveon Clowney's touchdown was in the South Carolina spring game. We could at least admit that fact. So maybe if you give me the bobbles, maybe I get 8. But there's no chance. No chance. 48 is ridiculous. But I think he's the guy, and I hope everybody who was in the program with us live could hear it. He's the guy I think everybody's really tuned in to see where he goes, because there's obviously ample opportunity in the NFL for wide receivers. There's ample opportunity for a guy who's got his size, his hands, and just his and it really is. It's a God-given talent to be able to go up and attack the football the way he does. So many times when you're watching professional football, what's the one criticism that people have for wide receivers? It's that they don't go up to make the plays. This kid goes up to make the plays. He goes up to make grabs. There are those guys out there. It's not to say that those players don't exist. We know they do. I mean, Randy Moss made a living doing just that, still in the NFL. Not playing to the same level, but there were years where Randy Moss probably could have been the best wide receiver in football just by running past people. But it was that ability to go up and attack the football at its highest point. And that's where I believe that DeAndre Hopkins will not only have the most amount of luck, but one of the reasons that NFL executives will look at him and maybe put him up above someone else. If it comes down to 2, you're looking at wide receivers, you're saying, who's going to be the guy in that big moment where I need a catch that's going to make it? And from what I've seen from most of the guys in the draft, from me, it's Nuke Hopkins. Now, I've seen a lot more of him. I haven't seen every single one of those guys as frequently as I've seen Nuke. But Nuke's a guy who I think has a ton of ability. Would not surprise me if he goes mid to late first round. I think a lot of people really feel like that's about his projected spot. I know some guys in the chat room were talking about they would like to see him with the St. Louis Rams, playing with Sam Bradford. I wouldn't mind seeing him with Indianapolis, playing back with Dwayne Allen, playing with Andrew Luck. I think that's a nice fit for him and a team in the Colts, who had a very good season and a surprisingly good season, I think. And to add him into the mix would be another nice notch in his belt, because I think you've got a long career left ahead for a lot of the Colts, a much younger team now that Peyton Manning has moved on. As for Andre Ellington, another guy who a lot of people are obviously looking to see what happens with him, Andre's a little bit different for me. I mean, I remember when Andre was coming out of Berkeley High School, seeing the first clips of him and knowing what Clemson had in C.J. Spiller and saying, this kid looks like he could be special. This kid looks like he could be a legitimate all-star, all-American type player, especially playing against the high school competition. Did it take Andre a while to get in the fold because of the competition at Clemson? Certainly it did. Did he have to prove his hands to be better season by season, especially given this offense? Absolutely. Did he do that? I think he did. And he really ended up developing himself into a very good pass-protecting back in the situations that he was put in at Clemson University. Injury-prone, I think that's all. I mean, you look at Marcus Lattimore. I had this discussion the other day with a big Gamecock fan. Do you consider Marcus Lattimore injury-prone? You couldn't avoid the injury that happened this year against Tennessee. Freak accident when he tore his other ACL. At no time did he make a cut. At no time was he making a move when he was injured. He got knocked out in the Chick-fil-A Bowl against Florida State. Injury-prone, I mean, I don't know that I would classify Marcus Lattimore's injury-prone, and I don't think I would classify Andre Ellington as injury-prone. But I do think in the NFL, the fast running backs, similar to the C.J. Spillers, similar to the Chris Johnsons, which is obviously Andre Ellington doesn't have that elite breakaway speed that maybe the Spillers and the Chris Johnsons have. But he did show some dynamic playmaking ability, keeping his hand on the ground multiple times against Auburn to make plays. That's where he could really be a significant improvement for a team, especially maybe as a third down back, somebody that you can count on to pick up that extra few yards. And he got better and better and better at running through the hole. He never, I don't want to say he tiptoed through the hole ever in his career. I think Jamie Harper had a tough time getting that right through the gap, hit the hole hard mentality. He always seemed to dance a little bit. Andre improved as he went through each and every year. I'm not sure where he'll go. I would think third, fourth round. And I think the right team that needs the right piece could be a great fit for him. You find the right, and C.J. Spiller, you look at his career and what he did this past season, people say, yeah, but where was he earlier in his career? Obviously, there was competition in Buffalo. But I think Spiller showed that a guy that has similar size to Andre Ellington can be an every down back in the NFL. The longevity of that career, though, will clearly be much shorter than most. I mean, if you're an every down back with that kind of size, you're probably going to be often injured in the NFL because you're not outrunning a whole lot of people. I mean, let's be fair about it. You're not going to outrun a whole lot of people in the NFL. But my hope is that those two guys will go somewhere to a team that really accentuates what they bring to the table. And I think we saw that in Chad Morris's offense for both of these guys. And Morris was a guy who really kept this offense 50-50. Really kept it, fairly split. Those two, though, the offensive weapons from Clemson are the key guys that I think everybody's looking forward to seeing where they go. And we'll talk a little bit more about the draft and some of your favorite Clemson players, whether they'll be drafted or not, whether they did enough to get there, all that, and hopefully B.J. Bennett right after these messages. Stay with us, Tiger fans.
And my mama told me homecoming games are the best on the banks of those late fall, late cartwheel sunsets. I wanted to be just like Jeff Davis when I grew up, tackling Seminoles and Bulldogs, playing football in the mud. So everybody sing Tiger Rag at the top of your lungs, and we'll party like it's 1981.
Do you suffer from a chronic case of the woohoo during football games? Do your Saturdays sound something a bit like this? Well, TigerNet Talk is out to fix that. If we can band together, we can change this reoccurring issue. With a simple, go Tigers, go, you can make a difference. Ban the woohoo. Do yourself a favor. And as always, go Tigers. A winning team requires having great team members. If you're a landowner interested in selling timber or are considering buying or selling land, call the winning team of Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty, LLC today. Put the knowledge and skills of professional, licensed foresters and realtors to work for your team. To learn more about the forestry and real estate services offered by Cross Creek Timber, call 864-517-3620 and Cross Creek Realty, LLC at 864-517-3621. Or visit www.crosscreektimber.com and easily follow the link to real estate. G-Dog General Dentistry at Oak Grove is located on Highway 1 near the Barnyard Flea Market. Modern, relaxing dentistry with TVs and headphones in every room, nitrous and even oral sedation. Digital diagnostic x-rays for better quality and 85% less radiation exposure. And check out their new Clemson Patient Special. Mention that you heard about G-Dog here on the Clemson Sports Talk programs and receive an extra 5% off all services. If you don't have a regular dentist, go see my dentist, Dr. Rick Jackson at G-Dog. That's General Dentistry at Oak Grove.
There's something about looking and feeling classy that everyone enjoys. Check out Edisto Outdoors, an apparel brand inspired by our southern animals and environment. These shirts feature soft-touch prints that will keep you looking your best in all types of weather. Look for Edisto Outdoors coming soon to many fine retailers across the state, or visit www.edistooutdoors.com. Technical, comfortable, livable.
Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote. 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that. Clemson Sports Talk fans, let us help you. With rates starting as low as $100 a month, you can advertise with us through July 2013. We are currently seeking additional advertisers and would love to help you spread the word about your business. Email us clemson81@gmail.com for additional information. Sponsors will receive an ad during the show and a link and logo in the weekly show notes on TigerNet and on the front page of ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Take your business to the Clemson fans around the world with us, ClemsonSportsTalk.com.
We turned up, we run down the hill, we so turned up. Run the rock, hit the field, no competition, we first up. Offense is too fast, defense ain't scared, boy. Line up against me, we drop you on your head, boy. Death Valley be jumping, whole stadium pumping. Best fans in the whole nation, and damn right we love them. C-L-E-M-S-O-N, we Clemson, we ballin', we all in.
Speaking of all in, I tell you what, I had to let that run all the way through. BJ Bennett of SouthernPigskin.com joins us here on the program. If you're a Clemson Tiger fan, you live down in the Savannah, Hilton Head area, you can listen to 104.3 FM ESPN Radio to catch BJ and the boys down there. They also run the website SouthernPigskin.com. But, BJ, we were talking off the air. You told me you're all in. You wrote an article, Clemson's championship time is now. You said you're catching a little heat from people saying, man, Clemson? Really, Clemson? But you're an all-in kind of guy.
Yeah. Hey, Lawton, thanks so much for bringing me on the program. You know, it's interesting when you're here in SEC country and, you know, if you kind of make any preseason prediction that isn't completely centered on Alabama or Texas A&M or Georgia, you know, folks kind of raise their eyebrows at you, and that's understandable. I mean, you look at what the SEC's done, and they're going to be right in the mix for a championship this year. But when I look at kind of a makeshift list of preseason rankings, I see Clemson and I get really excited. And I know for Clemson, the last decade plus has been filled with a little inconsistency. But I think that when you make a run at the national championship, and I'm talking about the national title here with Clemson, not just the ACC title, it's one of those things where you obviously have to be very good. But I think some invariables have to line up for you as well. And with the talent that's coming back, the offense speaks for itself. I think the defense, second year under the staff there, is going to get better. But I think that some of the other things you look at, Clemson, their regular season is bookends with Georgia and South Carolina. And you look at South Carolina at the end of the year, and kind of based on the historical ebb and flow of that series, you would think Clemson is probably going to get off the schneid here soon, considering I don't think Clemson's ever lost 5 straight times to South Carolina. And then at the beginning of the year, though Clemson, Georgia is going to be just a madhouse up there, and it's going to be a national spotlight that can suffocate a lot of young guys, these are the type of games you have to have on your schedule if you're a non-SEC school that hopes to compete for the national championship. And, Georgia is going to be retooling on defense, and especially at safety positions, the 2 safety spots, and with their pass rush. And if that's kind of your status quo on defense entering the year, the last team you want to run into is Clemson. And that one has the potential, as you certainly know, to be a big-time shootout. But, you couple that with the fact that you get Florida State at home. The Seminoles haven't won in Death Valley since 2001, and they're likely going to have an inexperienced freshman quarterback running things there, and breaking in a new offensive lineman. That'll be later in the year to replace Menelik Watson on the edge. And I think that Clemson has a real energy about them, Lawton, that stems from the Chick-fil-A Bowl and that late win over LSU. I'm a firm believer that what you do in the bowl game can kind of set the tone for the next year. And Daniel Rodriguez, my buddy up there, has brought such a passion and enthusiasm and perspective to that program. And you couple his kind of outlook on things with the energy Dabo Swinney has, and I'm really, really excited for Clemson Tiger football 2013.
Well, and I think the other thing that you kind of hit on there, too, that's so big for Clemson this year is Taj Boyd coming back and being in his 3rd year, as the starting quarterback, getting the opportunities in this system to just really mature. And you see Chad Morris saying, hey, we want to get faster. We want to be faster than Oregon. Clemson has no interest in being the Oregon of the East. They want people to start saying, hey, Oregon is the Clemson of the West, and they want to get faster and faster. And with Morris and Taj Boyd playing the way they're playing, or at least scheming it up the way they've schemed it up, they have the potential to be like, the mad scientist and his evil henchman.
It's a match made in heaven. Chad Morris, what he likes to do schematically is a perfect fit for Taj Boyd and Sammy Watkins and the skill position players. And Taj Boyd is such a luxury to have, the fact that he's decided to come back. And, in the Peach State, folks are obviously very excited about the return of Aaron Murray. And when you have a veteran quarterback who knows what it takes to have success in the spotlight, who knows how to shoulder expectations, who is comfortable late in games, you saw the maturity and the kind of unflappability of Taj Boyd come to fruition in the end of the Chick-fil-A Bowl. You couldn't write a better script.
That was unbelievable.
Championship than one that includes a veteran quarterback. And folks in the state of Georgia are kind of not as worried about what they have on defense to replace because Aaron Murray's there. And I think it's similar for any school that has a big-time quarterback coming back. And if you're looking at a list of the best quarterbacks in the country, and you want to throw Johnny Manziel up there, and you want to throw Aaron Murray up there, and A.J. McCarron, Taj Boyd is right there. I mean, right there is one of the top 3-4 quarterbacks in the country. The guy seems to have a certain command of that offense and a certain kind of feel to his play that, if I'm a Clemson fan, has to make me feel both excited and at ease at the same time when I'm watching that offense work. So I think you're exactly right. He is the full-fledged catalyst for what Clemson hopes to do this year, and what a great guy to have in that position.
B.J. Bennett of SouthernPigskin.com, also of ESPN Radio 104.3 FM in Savannah and Hilton Head, joins us here on TigerNet Talk, talking about your Clemson Tigers. A final question, really, or concept about this game between Georgia to open the season. When you look at this game, obviously not a conference ball game for either team, but a real opportunity. Does the loser, though, of that ball game, if it's Georgia, if it's Clemson, whoever, I mean, how does that set the tone for your season? And if you look at Georgia, for crying out loud, a program that's found their way into the SEC championship game the past couple of seasons, but still, Mark Richt always criticized heavily by the Georgia Bulldog fans and faithful. And then you've also got to look at Aaron Murray as a kid who really hasn't done a whole lot against top-level competition, especially on the road throughout his career.
Right, and some criticism, I think, around Rick and Murray has been fair. I think some of it has been greatly exaggerated. And you look at the end of the SEC championship game last year, one of the things that's amazing to me, and Dalton, you know this, man, about football is that we're talking about a fingernail, an inch or two that can make a difference in really how your legacy is perceived. And when Aaron Murray completed that pass down the middle of the field to Arthur Lynch and took Georgia to right up, to the 8-9 yard line against Alabama late,
right.
I'm thinking to myself, we are watching a guy completely redefine what his brand is, and Aaron Murray. And then you had kind of the I don't know what to call it, a goof or just an unfortunate incident at the end where C.J. Mosley bats a ball up and a ball falls in a receiver's hands. So I think Aaron Murray is more than capable of having success in big games. He's one of the few quarterbacks in modern Georgia history to have success fairly consistently against the University of Florida. So I think he's a guy that is aware of his public persona but is comfortable with what he's done and for good reason. But, the Georgia-Clemson matchup is going to be spectacular. If you're a Southern college football fan especially and you look at the schedule, that's the highlight of your year. And in terms of your question, how does the loser overcome an early season defeat? It depends on the infrastructure of your football team. It depends on your leadership. And fortunately for Clemson and Georgia, I think they have two very strong-willed head football coaches. We talked about the leadership under center with Taj Boyd and Aaron Murray. And I think the loser will be able to kind of pick themselves back up and say our goal in terms of a conference championship is still intact. And it'll be difficult to kind of inflate yourself back up. But I think Georgia and Clemson are both built internally for this season to be able to handle some adversity.
The ACC's grant of rights, good or bad for Clemson, Florida State, some of those football schools?
That's a fascinating question. I mean, that is the $64,000 question. It's certainly good for the ACC. I mean, incredibly good. And if you're Wake Forest or UNC or some of the schools in that realm, you certainly feel great about it. I think off the cuff, just when you look at the headlines and you kind of read the first couple of sentences, maybe you raise your eyebrows a little bit in terms of contextually how this affects Florida State and Clemson, kind of your football bell cows. But I think the name of the game, Lawton, even for schools that are just well-versed in history and tradition and are national fixtures like Clemson and FSU, is you want to make sure you're stable through all of this. You want to make sure that you're able to, at least in my opinion, maintain kind of your regional hold. You want to make sure you're able to keep some of your rivalries intact. And
right.
Absolutely, you want to be financially competitive with the other leagues. But I think if you're looking for a positive to draw from this, Florida State and Clemson, and maybe you look at Virginia Tech and you look at Miami and you look at Georgia Tech when they're playing well, that's a pretty solid football core. And I think those teams can kind of look at each other now and say, we don't have to be looking over each other's shoulders. If we're Florida State, we don't have to go to sleep at night wondering, is Georgia Tech going to go to the Big Ten? Is Clemson going to get an invite and maybe we won't? So I think that comfortability will maybe lead to a little more, conference camaraderie and can maybe help the ACC try to gain some traction as they move forward.
Well, and then the swap out, I think, of Maryland and what will be a Louisville team that you hope will still be good in 2014 coming in. You mix in Notre Dame and their 5 games against the conference teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference. And maybe one day with the way this college football playoff is headed, without the term NCAA even being in there, perhaps you're looking at a completely different scenario, a completely different concept. And I've always said the only way you get Notre Dame into a conference is if you threaten to lock them out of the championship. And that could be the circumstance that they face if this college football playoff splits away from the NCAA, and they say, all right, we're going to have 64 of the best schools or however many of the best schools going at it head-to-head. Notre Dame, are you in or are you out? You need to be in a conference.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, you're absolutely spot on there, because if you start to look at the ACC through the paradigm of you have what you have, but you are adding Louisville, as you mentioned, who beat up on the Florida Gators in the Sugar Bowl last year and have been very, very good under Charlie Strong. And then maybe you look at the possibility of being able to kind of headlock Notre Dame into a situation that they may not even want to be in, but they have to begrudgingly accept. Then that's a totally different conference structure from a football perspective. But much as all of your listeners have seen and we've all seen, who knows where college football is headed?
Yeah.
I mean, I've just been eyes wide open over the last couple of years watching things like the regional undertones of conferences be shattered. Classic rivalries like Texas and Texas A&M just be ripped apart. Here in my neck of the woods in Savannah, Georgia Southern recently announced that they're going to the Sun Belt, and a great move for that school in terms of marketing and exposure, and folks here are exceptionally excited. You're talking about one of the true pillars of FCS or 1AA football completely kind of remolding their football program. So back to the grant of rights, I think it comes down to if you can be financially competitive, you want to surround yourself with schools who you feel like, for lack of a better phrase, have your back, are going to be there in the long haul with you, and are going to protect you from the uncertain landscape that's out there. And I think contractually, in terms of legislation and litigation, this kind of forces that, even if it's uncomfortable at first.
A lot of talk, obviously, surrounding head injuries and players with concussions. Even one of the players over at Auburn actually got thrown out of his game, thrown out of the spring game because of a targeting call. And I really don't like putting those things in the hands of referees. But I'm going to change it to taking the upper, from the neck up into the equation, and you look at the rules that college football has currently with players who cannot turn pro until their third year out of high school. For safety reasons, you're seeing some guys turning pro early. Maybe you look at a Marcus Lattimore at South Carolina, the injuries that he's had in his career, not willing to risk it coming back again. I think you're going to continue to see that trend of guys going as soon as they can, regardless of redshirt, because of just the nature of the beast, really, that is college football. You look at a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, who would clearly be drafted Thursday night, maybe first. You look at a guy like Sammy Watkins, who probably would be drafted Thursday night. Is it time for college football, in your mind, to reevaluate and maybe let these guys go pro after 2 years of college?
Boy, that's another great question. I think that's something worth examining. And football is so different because of the physicality of it. But you look at every other avenue of kind of professionalism from an athletic standpoint. If you're a tennis player, you can kind of go pro whenever you're ready. If you're a golfer, same deal. And basketball and baseball have separate but similar in some regards kind of circumstances there. But I think it's something worth examining. You do want to make sure that you have broad legislation that protects the best interests of the student athlete. And with football, that's so hard to define, because you're looking at head injuries, as you poignantly pointed out. You're
right.
Looking at the risk of possibly losing money that's already been, I guess, earned based on your production and performance, but you can't get yet because of rules. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is kind of conveying the message that I think few things dehumanize individuals, young people, like a football helmet. If you look at a 21-year-old in everyday life and he has a job and he's not living at home, he or she, you're like, man, that's a miracle, in this economy. Great job. We're proud of you. And if you look at a 21-year-old wearing a football helmet, everybody has these incredible expectations and these unrelenting pressures that are hard to kind of keep wraps on. So I think when you also digest the fact that you're talking about the health and safety, but also the financial well-being of a 21-year-old kid, a 20-year-old kid. You're talking about at 20, a young man who can't even go to the store and buy a Bud Light yet. I mean, I think you really have to be careful to kind of incorporate all of the factors at play and really try to figure out a broad kind of ruling that is best for everybody's best interest.
BJ Bennett of SouthernPigskin.com, 104.3 ESPN Radio in Savannah and Hilton Head. The guys in the chat room absolutely love what you're saying. Clemson Swag says, this guy's great. I get everything he's saying. BJ Bennett, respect.
I like that. I tell you what, it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, man. I tell you, when you come on the radio in Georgia and you say Clemson's going to do this, Clemson's going to do that, you get the stink eye. And if you say it in the Palmetto State, depending upon where you are, it gets viewed a little differently. But I'm just so excited about college football season, and we're kind of getting into that summer prognostication realm. It's so much fun, and always enjoy chatting with you on our show in Savannah and Hilton Head and down through Brunswick and St. Simon. So I'm excited, and whether you're Clemson or South Carolina or Georgia, I think there's a lot of optimism overall in our parts.
Absolutely. BJ, man, let's get you back on the show soon, and I look forward to speaking with you.
Hey, anytime, Lawton. Thank you so much. I enjoy your work, and we'll do it again soon.
BJ Bennett, SouthernPigskin.com. Go to their website, check them out. You'll notice their advertisement on the front of TigerNet as well from time to time. Awesome stuff they do, and a guy that really likes where Dabo Swinney has this team headed this season. Like I said, 10 wins, 11 wins. Could this be the year for 12? Will 13 eventually be there? Who knows? Stay with us, Tiger fans. Final segment after this.
In my head, if I pointed it just
The 1988 season was a great year for the Clemson Tigers, finishing 10-2 with a win over Oklahoma in the Citrus Bowl. But it was a better year for Clemson fans. That season, Tigertown Graphics became your source for custom tees, promotional items, and embroidery. Conveniently located in the heart of downtown Clemson, their retail store proudly displays Clemson shirts that are designed and printed directly on site. Whether you're looking for the latest Clemson t-shirts or ordering products for your school, organization, or business, Tigertown Graphics can help with all of your t-shirt needs. Find them online at www.tigertowngraphics.com. A Clemson tradition since 1988.
Blake Austin of South Carolina Farm Bureau is an insurance agent you can count on to meet all your needs. Home, auto, health, life, you name it, Blake's got you covered, and he can save you on your yearly rates. Call him now for a free quote, 803-259-5008. That's 803-259-5008. Or just go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com and click on the Farm Bureau logo to be connected to Blake. Do like I do and work with the best agent around, and you can tweet that. Hey there, Tiger fans. When you take yourself out to the ball game, make sure that you're staying at the Clemson University Conference Center and Inn. That's right, it's the closest hotel to Doug Kingsmore Stadium. Lakeside accommodations, complimentary continental breakfast bar with waffles, the Seasons by the Lake restaurant, Joe's Place Bar, and the Walker Golf Course are all waiting for you right around the corner from Doug Kingsmore Stadium. For reservations, contact General Manager Sharon Franks at sharonf@clemson.edu or call 1-888-654-9020 and ask to speak to Sharon. Buy yourself some peanuts and Cracker Jacks, but make sure that you stay at the Clemson University Conference Center and Inn. A winning team requires having great team members. If you're a landowner interested in selling timber or are considering buying or selling land, call the winning team of Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty, LLC today. Put the knowledge and skills of professional licensed foresters and realtors to work for your team. To learn more about services offered by Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty, LLC, visit www.crosscreektimber.com and easily follow the link to real estate or reach them by phone 864-517-3620 or 864-517-3621.
In 81, the Tiger goal is to win the championship. Climb to the top of the football poles, win us a bowl game trip. Like Jack and the Beanstalk.
These old songs just crack me up. Ode to the Paws and Claws. Old school record. And the odd thing about it, it came out, I believe, in 1981, the year that Clemson won the national championship, before the season, talking about winning the national title. I guess it's the equivalent of the We Too Deep maybe some of the Chad Kelly songs that have come out. A Nashville Review, I think, was the other little title. You can probably find it on eBay. My favorite song on the whole album is I'm an Orange Fan in Tigerland. I play that one from time to time. It's pretty corny, I'll admit, but if you're a Clemson Tiger fan and you like kind of the old school style stuff, it's really good. Thank you so much for being here on TigerNet Talk, presented by Cross Creek Timber and Cross Creek Realty. Check them out online, crosscreektimber.com and crosscreekrealtyllc.com. Steve Smith and those guys, they'll treat you up right. If you've got timber on land that you need to sell, you need to get that off, get it taken care of. Those are your guys to turn to. And then you've got real estate needs as well. They're all over it. They'll clear your land, then they'll help you put a house on it. Just put it that way. So get in touch with Steve Smith and the guys over there at Cross Creek Timber. We certainly do appreciate them for being a sponsor on our program for so long. Andrew sent us a tweet. Andrew on Twitter, you can follow him. He's Andrew Ware 10. That's WEIR. He says, if Clemson don't beat the Gamecocks this year, will Dabo be fired? And I'll tell you basically my tweet back to him. I guess that would depend on the record going into that ball game. I don't think Dabo Swinney would be fired for losing to South Carolina again based on what he's done throughout his tenure at Clemson outside of those games against Carolina. It is clearly, though, an open wound right now for Clemson Tiger fans. And, if you listened to the program last week, I was a little bit fired up after a run-in with a Gamecock at an Exxon station. And it took everything I had in the station to just bite my tongue and realize that, you know what, I'm better than that. I don't have to address that Gamecock and his issues because I know where we still stand in the grand scheme of things in this series, throughout my life, what it's always been for so many years, just basically an utter domination by Clemson. And as B.J. Bennett said, you would expect that thing, this series, to eventually turn again. And even with the SEC's money, the extra benefits that South Carolina's received, I don't think that it is enough to keep Clemson from getting back to where they once were. And I think this grant of rights, the solidity of the Atlantic Coast Conference, those things, just being solidified a little bit more, the new teams coming in, the Notre Dames, some of the contracts, maybe the ACC goes to 16, maybe you get to re-up, find some more money if Notre Dame is in the mix than with them sort of on the outside. There's a whole lot to like, though, I think. And finally, unlike Mickey Plyler's article, I feel good about things right now. The thing I feel worst about is a 4-game losing streak to South Carolina. I mean, that's just flat out it. Mike Bentley's with us. Mike, glad to have you here, brother. It's been a while. It has been a while. We've got Mike, Craig, David, Clemson Swag, Erica, Andy, Tim, and a whole bunch of other guests with us. And we always appreciate you stopping by and spending some time with us. All right, a couple of things we got to get to. One thing, though, I'm going to push back to Clemson Hotline Sunday night at 9 o'clock, and that's going to be getting into how I would set up college football, assuming that this new college football playoff is going to eventually break away from the NCAA, which may mean conferences completely realigned to some degree. I'll give you my thoughts on that right now, where I'm at with it all. Sunday night, 9 p.m. Also, Sunday night at 9 p.m. on Clemson Hotline. You can watch that show on ClemsonSportsTalk.com as well. And you can also watch TigerNet Talk, as you know, on TigerNet.com. But we're going to have DeAndre McDaniel on with us. You'll love to hear from DeAndre. Can't wait to talk to him about the moments before impact as he gets the interception against Florida State and points to Christian Ponder. And just gives him the old, here it comes, Christian. That was such an unbelievable moment. You talk about when you're watching that play unfold and you're saying, oh, my goodness, this is about to be. It looked like Nikita Koloff hitting one of the Mulkey brothers with the Russian sickle. That's how beautiful it was. That's how it went down. Mike says he loved that McDaniels play. Yes, it was great. And a great moment because there have been so many Florida State quarterbacks through the years, whether it's Chris Ricks, whether it's Chris Winkie, whether it's Charlie Ward. When you look at those quarterbacks throughout the years at Florida State, the thorn in Clemson's side. Chris Winkie putting the ball on his hip, 99.5 yards later, Snoop Menace for a touchdown. The teams that just beat Clemson like a drum for so many years when Florida State came into the league back in 1992. So many moments, the Punt Ruski game. before Florida State joined the league that hurt. I mean, it was nice to go down to Florida State the next year and have Wayne Simmons and Terry Allen answer the bell with a couple of 72-yard touchdowns in those games, one an interception return, the other just a little option left. But finally, when the momentum turned in this series, Charlie Whitehurst taking Clemson down the field to beat the number 3 ranked Florida State Seminoles back in 2003, and knowing how much this series has shifted in Death Valley. But that play, DeAndre McDaniel, that was one of the top ones against Florida State in recent memory, I think, for a lot of us when you think back to the big moments when you just turned to the person beside you and were like, this is it, we just won this game, that shut it down. That was outstanding. Remember, you can call us throughout the week, 803-450-0086. That number is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And also go to ClemsonSportsTalk.com. There's a little place you can leave us a voicemail. We'd love to hear from you and put you on the program. The final couple of guys, though, that we got to talk about, Malachi Goodman, Dalton Freeman, and Rashard Hall. I'll be honest with you, with Malachi Goodman, he's got the size. He showed he can play with a high motor against LSU, but how much of that LSU film can outweigh what happened to him the rest of his career, I don't know. I don't really I think that probably you're looking at a guy who's going to be a free agent signee. Maybe somebody takes him late as a project in the 6th or 7th round, a team that can be willing to use a pick and utilize a pick that late on a guy maybe like his size, 6'4", 270-some-odd pounds, a kid who underperformed as collegiately. Maybe he gets a shot. Dalton Freeman's another guy who I really don't think Dalton will get drafted. He may get lucky and get taken, 5th, 6th round, but Dalton was a leader on the field. You look at a guy like Jeff Saturday in the NFL. I don't remember Jeff Saturday's playing career collegiately, and there are a lot of guys in the NFL on the offensive line specifically that you don't remember them collegiately. Maybe you don't even remember the school that they came from, but leadership skills, smarts, those are the things that Dalton Freeman brings to the table. Those are the things that some of these coaching staffs will look at and say, you know what, maybe we'll give this guy a shot as well. And finally, Rashard Hall. Rashard Hall didn't have the best senior season. Let's face it. I mean, there were a number of issues with the angles he took. Rashard Hall doesn't exactly work his hips the best when you're talking about a guy in the secondary that you need to be able to turn and run occasionally. He really took some going back to the angles over and over and over. I mean, those are things that are on film that the NFL look at and go, in the NFL, if you're a step behind in college football, you're 2.5 steps behind in the NFL. Rashard Hall, again, he kind of falls in that same category with Malachi Goodman and Dalton Freeman. Those are guys who are really going to be NFL projects. They're going to be guys that if you take a shot at them, they may never develop into a player who's going to play consistently at the NFL level. I think it's a testament to Clemson Tiger football, what Dabo Swinney has done throughout the years, what Clemson football has done throughout the years to put guys to the NFL. But these 3 guys, outside of the 5 guys that are turning pro, or at least going to have the opportunity to go pro tomorrow and on through the weekend, I think those 3 guys are major projects. I think they'll be lucky to be drafted, and it really has nothing to do with my affiliation to Clemson, my feelings about them, but it does have to do with the fact that they obviously aren't at the same level as a lot of these other guys who are turning pro, and that's the difficult thing, I think, for these guys, because all of their life, they've been elite athletes. They've been next-level guys. Unfortunately, this next level is a step that will be quite difficult for all 3 of them. Dalton Freeman, Rashard Hall, best of luck to you. Malachi Goodman, I think, of those 3 will be the guy taken the highest, because I think the upside for Malachi Goodman outweighs anything the other 2 guys have to offer. But I really believe, like I said earlier, that Nuke Hopkins will go some point 15 and below in the first round. I think he's proven that, and I think you're going to see a guy like Andre Ellington somewhere in the mid to late 3rd round. So look for that. Anyhow, Sunday night, 9 p.m., Clemson Hotline. We'll be right here on ClemsonSportsTalk.com, and also next Wednesday night, TigerNet Talk at 9 p.m. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. Send us an email, call us, tweet to us. And as always, y'all take care now, and go Tigers!